Alrighty, welcome to another Magic the Gathering video. I haven't made one of these in a bit, but it's because I've been trying to figure out the meta for Dominaria a little bit before I really started making videos. This deck has seen some decent success. It's very, very, very aggro, and it's a little slower than red or like Gruul aggro decks, but it is actually an Izzet aggro deck. Is a very low to the ground, very cheap, blow up your opponent. It's very similar to a Explorer version of the deck that I run because of the inclusion of some pretty powerful new cards with Dominaria, including stuff like Twinferno, the Return of Lightning Strike, Balmor Battle Mage Captain, and Electrostatic Infantry. But let's go through just like straight through the list. Let's talk about the land base first. The land base is very important, and I believe you probably need to get all 8 of these rare lands to make this deck work. Tapped lands are just too slow, honestly, in general. And while Stormcarved Coast is a tapped land, you don't need to play it as a tapped land if you're getting it as your 3rd land drop. And Shivan Reef, while it does hurt you, your plan is to kill your opponent before anything else matters. Let's talk about the cards in general. Number 1 creature card, Delver of Secrets. This thing is still insane. It's still around because Innistrad has not rotated yet. If you reveal an instant or sorcery off the top of your library at your upkeep step, it'll turn into a 3/2 flyer, which is just really powerful because you can essentially get that on turn 2, if you're lucky. Now, you can also get very unlucky, but we have ways to kind of try and fix that with cards like Fading Hope, which you can use to self-bounce to protect cards, or bounce opponent's cards to scry to try and flip Delver a bit earlier. You have Play with Fire to do the exact same thing. So you have a couple of ways of doing it. Consider doesn't quite work out with this plan. That's why you would typically put in, like, just something different in its slot. But Consider does give you great card advantage. It does allow you to cycle through your deck. It essentially allows you to play a deck 4 cards lighter because of this. Other cards that we're using here creature-wise are Phoenix Chick, just a 1/1 hasty little burb who is adorable, I'm not going to lie. It can come back from the graveyard with +1/+1 counters if you pay 2 red while you have 3 creatures attacking, which happens more often than you'd think in this deck. It's not super common, but it does happen. If you can get into kind of a late game grindy matchup into like Orzhov, life drain, life gain, maybe like in a, that type of deck, it could be pretty powerful because you can just keep swinging and swinging as they keep trying to keep life up, or like maybe an Angels deck. Speaking of creatures that just kind of want to run down your opponent and keep swinging, Electrostatic Infantry is a great addition to any red or blue-red spellslinger decks in Dominaria, because it is a 1/2 trampler for 2 mana, which is a little slow compared to, say, your Delver or your Phoenix Chick. However, when you're playing instants and sorceries, you get +1/+1 counters, and as you see, we have a lot of cheap instants and sorceries, so it works out great. Balmor is a great kind of like finisher, because when you play it, everything starts getting +1/+0. So you have a Balmor on field, you have Electrostatic Infantry's out, you have Delvers of Secrets out. They're just pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping as you keep playing spells and sorceries, which is just great. What type of spells and sorceries? We talked about Consider and Fading Hope a bit. Those are pretty powerful cards. We talked about Play with Fire, which is a great burn spell. Same with Lightning Strike. I have it over the wrong card, I'm sorry. Same as Lightning Strike, which is pretty powerful. Let's talk about the 2 almost finishers that we have. Ancestral Anger, which is an older card, and will probably cycle out somewhat soon, I believe. That's why I only have 3 copies of it, because I want to try and find replacements, but it's very powerful. It gives you card draw, so if you have a bunch of mana on field, you just get to keep drawing and maybe keep playing instants or sorceries, or find an extra Phoenix Chick or something. But your creature gains trample, which is nice. You are already gaining trample through a lot of other means, but if you don't have Balmor out, then it works really well, and you get +X/+O, where X is 1 plus the number of cards named Ancestral Anger in your graveyard. It works better with a full playset, it works better if this is your last copy. Still very powerful, though. The other spell card that is an amazing finisher, that is by far the number 1 thing that you should probably be running 4 copies of. I don't know why I have 3 copies, because this is amazing. It's probably because it's a 2 cost, and this is a very low to the floor deck. You can either start copying instants or sorceries, meaning you can burn out your opponent with stuff like Lightning Strike, or, and here's the important one, target creature you control gains Double Strike. You know what works really well with Double Strike? Trample. Want to know what gives you Trample? Balmor Battle Mage. Ancestral Anger. Electrostatic Infantry has it by default. You will trample over your opponents on turn 3 or 4 and just crush them. Speaking of great things to crush your opponents and curve toppers, Shivan Devastator. It's a one-off, it's a mythic. It's good though. If you get into late game, it's something that if you top deck it, could possibly just end the game for you in 2 turns. Cast it for X equals 5 and then your red mana, bam, you now have a 5/5 flyer slamming your opponent in the face. If it's really late in the game, you top deck it with the Twinferno in hand, this hasty motherfucker will have a double strike. It's a fun deck. It's a great deck. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it is something that I enjoy playing a lot. I highly recommend it to you. When this video goes out, there should be a deck list in the description. I really hope I don't fuck that up. I've been bad about that before in the past, but there should be a deck list in the description if you want to try and craft it yourself. It is mostly uncommons and commons for the cards. There is a mythic on the Shivan Devastator. There are rares on the Reef and Storm Carved Coast, but everything else is commons and uncommons all the way down. It's a very cheap deck to craft. It's a very good starting point for any type of Izzet spellslinger aggro style deck, and I highly recommend this to you, my dear viewer. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe. Come back if you want to see more Magic content or my 14 or Destiny content. I do a lot of stuff on the channel here. Either way, I hope to catch you all in the future. Boy.